Courtney, your reaction to what went down in Atlanta yesterday and what's going to happen today?
Well, good morning, John. Thanks for having me once again. What happened in Atlanta yesterday, I think, is a disgrace to the legal community. I think it's going to continue to be a disgrace. It's an example of the left's manipulation and exploitation of the rule of law. We've seen that time and time again at this point. Rudy's statements are so true, and it's ironic that he took down the mafia using RICO, and now he's being indicted under a RICO charge. The irony of that is just crazy to think about. And he's right. He's fighting for the right for every American. He's fighting for the rights of every American's First Amendment rights, for the right to petition the government. Him and along with all the other lawyers who went and turned themselves in yesterday, they are fighting the good fight, and the left is exploiting that. I think that his point about the legal costs are also something to touch on because these legal costs are exponentially high. These cases could go on for months, for years at this point. You have 19 defendants, and she wants to try them all in one trial. Not possible. It won't happen. You already had 2 or 3 of them filed to remove their cases to federal court. You had Kenneth Chesebro file a motion for a speedy trial yesterday to try to have his trial happen by December of this year. The way this is going to happen is it's going to take years. It's going to take tons of money, tons of other lawyers. And the fact that she's even indicting these lawyers for doing their job, their ethical duty to zealously advocate for their clients is absurd and a disgrace to the legal community. And I believe, John, you're going to have Senator Clint Dixon on later in this morning, and he's already stated that he's going to be filing a complaint against her with the Prosecutorial Oversight Board here in Georgia come October, which is great. We need to hold her accountable, and we need transparency in our government, and especially with our DAs right now.
Well, one of the state senators there, Colton Moore, that's going to be on our show, on our radio show a little bit later on at the 8 o'clock hour, has called for a special session. He needs, Governor Kemp obviously is not going to call it. The only statement he put out was blasting President Trump in a tweet, basically backing Fani Willis, so forget that. But he's asking for signatures to get 3/5 of the House and 3/5 of the Senate in order to call a special session to investigate this woman. So far, he's got one signature, and that's Charlize Byrd in the House. No other senators, no other House representatives, not a peep out of anybody. Why?
Well, John, unfortunately, we do have session coming up here in January. And when the governor decides to appoint his floor leaders and those on committee, especially when the Speaker of the House decides to pick those committees, you kind of have to be on their side with a lot of things. And I think a lot of people are scared, like they were in 2020. You had few and far between decided to speak out for what is right and for what is just and fighting for those freedoms. And that's what's happening here. You're seeing everybody go quiet because they are self-interested to an extent, and they are trying to advocate for themselves and not their constituents and not the citizens of Georgia, unfortunately. But that's what you're seeing.
If you were in the state House, House of Representatives, or state Senate, would you sign Colton Moore's petition?
There's no reason not to, John. Like I said, we have to be able to hold people accountable. We have to have transparency in this process. We don't even know what documents the grand jury looked at or that they received to indict any of these people. That's ridiculous. That's not fair to anybody involved. And how she's running this investigation needs to be just, and it needs to be fair, and it needs to be done with the rule of law in mind. And it's not happening. And I think what Colton's doing is great. It's a great measure, and it shows that he's a fighter.
So what do you look for today? President Trump going to Atlanta. He's going to get a mugshot, fingerprinted. What do you see here? What will the outcome of today's debacle be?
John, I think what's going to happen is the same thing that's happened the last couple of days when people are going to turn themselves in to get booked and immediately released. And not long after that, the AJC, in typical AJC fashion, puts out these mugshots, and they'll be all over the internet like they were yesterday. Kudos to David Schaefer for smiling in his. I think that's great. I saw you retweeted that yesterday. And I think it's just going to be like any other defendant has been getting booked. I think that he's going to probably speak to the media afterwards. It's Donald Trump, of course. And I think that it's unbelievable that we are going to have a former president's mugshot publicly available, but the fact that they even need to take a mugshot is absolutely absurd. It is just counter, like I said, to the rule of law once again. Fani Willis has manipulated the law, and she's weaponizing it against every single Republican and conservative.